should always listen to the advice of spokes animals. After all, who knows more about protecting your home and car than an articulate gopher like me? So let's get down to it.
This spokes animal has been interrupted by AAA Insurance. With affordable auto and home insurance, plus America's most recommended roadside, AAA doesn't need talking gophers because we offer coverage confidence. Visit AAA.com for details and choose coverage confidence. AAA, outsmart life.
Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners and Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. We love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful April the 21st, 2021. Rondo Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, another troubling day when you deal with police and law enforcement in America, Charlton. Yesterday, right before the George Floyd verdict came out against Derek Chauvin in Columbus, Ohio, police shoot a 16-year-old black girl to death who was having a fight with two other girls. And then last night in Miami, two young black boys, teenagers, are driving down the street on their bikes after just leaving a 7-Eleven, and they're pulled over at gunpoint by the police and make them crawl on the ground, Charlton, to them and handcuff them, told them they fit the description of someone who had committed a crime. And, you know, black people can never have a day of rest in America. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. They make sure they treat everybody equally.
They do everybody fair. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. And also all around the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, pausing, I guess everybody has to do more pausing, Big C, but I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why should everybody care?
Well, it's important, Charlton. I mean, pausing is one thing, but you have to humanize people to have a reason to pause, Charlton. But we lose some 24 veterans a day to suicide in this country, Charlton. A very horrific number that nobody should have to sustain. It's just as bad as black people getting killed for just being on the street. We as a country need to think more about our great veterans who have served this country, Charlton, and give them more respect than what they have gotten over the decades since returning from service active duty. Our veterans need help emotionally, mentally, financially, Charlton, and we're not giving them to them as a concerted country. And we have to think more about what they've given to us and give more back to them and find a way to stop the suicide amongst our great veterans in this country, Charlton.
Very well said. Trying to do our part, Big C. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net and get some help for our veterans and their loved ones. Also very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the Home Run King, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to help put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it. Carly should do it. Sports teams do it. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world. And I really do appreciate the growth we are having with Big C Sports. And I'm telling you, sometimes, Big C, we got to rise and shine every day. But not everybody rises to the same reality. And I just heard of the news that you just told me, just now. And I know the whole country and maybe even the whole world is celebrating what happened with the Chauvin conviction. But at the same time, there has to be more conviction to really practice liberty and justice for all. And if that can't be given, then we have to find a way to do away with police immunity. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, it wasn't a celebration on the Chauvin conviction yesterday. You think about this, Charlton. Just a few years ago, there was a church in South Carolina where a white guy walks in and kills 9 parishioners while they ask him to come in and pray with them. They open their hearts and their doors to this young white boy, Charlton. He goes in and kills them. There's a all-out bulletin for this man's apprehension. The police arrest him, Charlton, no guns. They take him by Burger King, give him something to eat. And for him to eat, what do they have to do? Take the handcuffs off of him, Charlton, for him to be able to eat his Burger King burger. You think about that, Charlton. And then every black incident you've seen after that, even the George Floyd, we see a black man get killed for a $20 bill, counterfeit $20 bill.
Yeah.
He didn't kill anybody, Charlton. Then we see this non-black person in Boulder, Colorado, goes in and shoots up a supermarket, Charlton, kills 10 people. They didn't kill him, Charlton. They walked him out to the police car.
Yeah.
Okay? Then yesterday, you roll up on this fight between girls going on, Charlton, and you don't use your taser. You choose to use your gun because you dehumanize these black people already. For them, because they disrupted you eating your donuts and drinking your coffee, you're going to go kill them because they made you had a bad day. I mean, so it's not a celebration in America, Charlton, and it can never be a celebration. It can never be equality in America. They can keep talking about equality, but as long as the Senate said, no, we don't need gun reform because this allows us to do what we do. You don't need police reform because it allows them to do what they do with impunity.
Yeah, we know that obviously, I don't know much about the substance you're talking about, the situation you're talking about, because I haven't heard about it. But I do, I don't know what to say. I've known that there's good and bad that happens every day. But I really don't have a solution outside of there has to be a congressional effort for treating people the same way. I know when people may say, well, there was a fight, and I don't know about it, I'm just going by what you told me, and there was a fight and they tried to break it up. I saw fist fights in school by boys and girls, and sometimes they would just settle that on their own, but no one brought a gun to kill someone. Big
The girl who made the call is the girl that the police shot to death, Charlton. The officer shot her at least 4 times.
Really?
He didn't have the wherewithal to use his taser. She made the 911 call to the police because she was in a fight with these other girls and they were threatening her. And yet she's the one, because she made the call to the police, she loses her life, Charlton. So when you call for protection from the police and that costs you your life, how are you supposed to look at the police, Charlton? 99.99% of police officers are good in America, Charlton. But it's those bad police that they let stay on the force that makes it tough for people to respect the police, Charlton. That's what it is. When I saw those young black boys riding down the street on their bikes last night in Florida, just left the 7-Eleven, and the police roll up on them at gunpoint. They're riding bikes, BMX bikes down the street.
Yeah.
2 teenage boys, 14, 13 years old. And they got their cell phone on, asking the police, what did they do? What happened? They're just riding down the street carefree.
Yeah.
Police have their guns drawn on them, tell them to get face down on the ground and crawl towards them. Otherwise, they're going to shoot them. So when this is your interaction with law enforcement, as a young black male, you're scarred for life.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to react the rest of your life? This is not where you go to a psychiatrist and say everything's going to be all right, because of everything that you've seen on television, everything that you've seen in print, and now that it's come to your front door. how are you supposed to look at life after that?
Yeah, a lot of people deal with intergenerational trauma. And oftentimes, you know, when I was a young boy, I remember riding my bicycle all over town. I mean, that's what we had. We would put the little game cards in the spokes to make it sound like a motorcycle flipping and flopping around town, Big C. But I never recall, again, I'm going back to when I was between maybe 8 and 12 years old. I never recall having to deal with any kind of trauma other than one kid, you know, a friend of mine. He got run over by a car. And it was at nighttime. He was in the middle of the road. You know, just 12-year-old kid. They don't have the frontal lobe developed. He got hit by a car. He was in a body cast for about maybe 6 months. After that, he was able to slowly get rehab and get better again. But I never felt afraid riding a bicycle. Can you recount anything in your youth where you had the innocence of having a bicycle, going for a ride? Anything ever happened to you that maybe traumatized you that you have to still think about today, Big C, your thoughts?
No, Charlton, I grew up in an era when those things didn't exist. Bikes were a main form of transportation in those days.
That's right.
Just like with those young boys last night in Florida. I mean, you're innocently coming back from a convenience store that you went to pick up a snack.
Yeah.
You have the bag that you have your goodies in your hand as you're riding down the street.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, 3 police cars pull up on you. Officers jump out with their guns drawn and tell you down on the ground or you're going to shoot.
Yeah.
Because they say you fit the description of some people who just committed a crime. You have evidence you just came from the store because the bag is in your hand.
Yeah.
But they're telling you fit the description. How in the hell do you fit the description when you're riding your bike down the street at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night because it's dark? What in the hell description do you fit, Charlton, other than riding while you're black?
So what's your solution, Big C?
I don't have a solution. I'm a dumb individual. I honestly am. I don't have that much intelligence. But I'm trying to understand why is being black in America is a crime. I'm an older gentleman, and I'm frustrated. I get more and more frustrated every day. I have plenty of friends that are in law enforcement. See them weekly, Charlton, a couple times a week. But it becomes more frustrating. And we talk about these things. And I know of the hardships of law enforcement. But as a young person, when you're going through developmental years in life, Charlton, and this is all that you see, how do you develop someone out of negativity, Charlton? As I told you yesterday during our show, yes, the Chauvin verdict was nice to see. But I also told you it was a makeup call, just like a foul being called in an NBA game. We're going to give you this one just because. But it's not going to stop what we do on a regular basis. And I'd be damned if it didn't stop them, Charlton, because they went right back to work to killing black people.
Well, for people that are worried about their children, you know, I face those same thoughts even when I'm out for my own walks. I always want to make sure I know where I am. And it's ironic. Sometimes I'll go walking with a dog, and I'll get more people saying, "Hi, how are you? Good morning." I mean, maybe it happens sometimes. I walk with my headphones on. But people are so kind when I walk with my dog. But sometimes when I'm walking on the sidewalk, just in regular outfit, workout gear, then there are times when people will scoot over to the other side of the sidewalk, like out on the road. I don't know. Maybe that's just a thing. It's not always about color. Sometimes people who look like you don't even acknowledge you. I can't make it about that, Big C. But I do hope that we get an act of Congress to look into having an end to a police immunity, because it shouldn't be. I mean, again, without the camera, there'd be no Chauvin conviction. Big C, your thoughts?
Oh, everybody knows there'd be no Chauvin conviction because the report that they wrote that night, Charlton, that he had a medical condition and they had to call for an ambulance. That was the official report prior to the video coming out, is that he suffered a medical episode. This is what was in the official police report.
Yeah.
And they had to call an ambulance because he was non-responsive. They didn't say what they were doing to him for 9.5 minutes down on the ground, killing him. They never mentioned that. They just said he had a medical episode and they had to call an ambulance. They had already facilitated the lie because George Floyd could not speak. They knew he was dead. So their word was going to be the only official word. They discounted all the cameras that were around videotaping everything. they could block the cameras that came from across the street at the gas station, and the intersection camera, and the one that was at the 911 center. They could block those. They didn't have to release those. But they had no control of the young 17-year-old girl that was videotaping the whole time, Charlton, that they had Mr. Floyd down on the ground killing him. This is the thing. The police lie all the time. And when they're the only ones alive, who in the hell is writing the report? The guy that's alive, Charlton, he's writing the report. 99% of the time, they turn off the video camera. There was an incident out there where you lived several years ago where they shot a young man in his grandparents' backyard. And the first thing they said, as you heard, turn off the body cam. Let's get this straight. Turn off the body cam. Let's get this straight. After they had shot the young man in his grandparents' yard 7 times. First thing we got to do is turn off the body cam and get this story straight. I love police officers. I love police intervention. I love for them to be able to do their job properly. All Americans want them to be able to do their job properly. But have some goddamn compassion and consideration for black people. Don't be the first thing you do when you come up on somebody black is that you have to pull out your gun. Whatever happened to good old communication? Why can't you shoot somebody in the leg if you're going to have to shoot somebody? Why do you have to shoot them in the chest 4 times, Charlton, and cause death? Because you damage many people. Not only do you eliminate that person's life, but think about the family members that they leave behind that are tormented for the rest of their lives because of your quick actions, Charlton, in not defusing a situation.
Hopefully we can have a congressional hearing about it. I know President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris spoke yesterday, and hopefully it wasn't a one-day speech and then going back to business as usual. There has to be an end to this police immunity. At least that's my solution. As more people talk and discuss how the law has to change to protect the innocent citizens, Big C, I think that's part of the solution.
Police immunity is not in the Constitution. Police immunity was enacted in 1967, Charlton, when some white officers killed some priests in Mississippi. Okay? That's when they took it to the Supreme Court to get the police immunity because they were part of the Civil Rights Act. And these police killed these white priests. And that's how police immunity came along, Charlton, because they were suing the police department for that injustice towards white people. And because of that, police enacted this police immunity. It is not a federal law. It is not. It is what they use through a Supreme Court act. And so it can be easily abolished because it is not a part of the Constitution. Matter of fact, an executive order could abolish police immunity if Joe Biden so wished to do it.
And that's why it's going to take action and not just speeches. It's all fair and love and war. Thoughts and prayers to everybody going through something. Can't put your head in the sand in order to change things. Big C, I want to touch on African Americans who shook up the world. Just like we need more executive actions, since people of color put you in office, use that pen. Just like your predecessor used that pen. We've had enough speeches, Big C. Robert Abbott, the founder of the Chicago Defender, because he gave voice to the voiceless. The story of the pioneer of the black press involves slaves, Big C, Nazis, and 25 cents, if that makes sense to you, born just 5 years after the end of the Civil War. Robert S. Abbott, Big C, founded a weekly newspaper, the Chicago Defender, one of the most important black newspapers in history, in 1905, Big C. Without Abbott, there would be no Essence magazine, no Jet magazine. With his Beauty of the Week magazine, where oftentimes, as women of color, the only way they saw mainstream celebrate their beauty was in Jet magazine, Big C. I have many of those magazines that I would look through because you're looking for people who look like you or your parents, Big C. There'd be no Black Enterprise. There'd be no Source magazine. When you think about what's going on in today's climate, the success of the Chicago Defender made Abbott one of the most prominent African Americans post-slavery in the nation, Big C, a black millionaire, along with beauty magnate. Her name was Madam C.J. Walker, one of the first millionaires in the country as African American descent, Big C, and paved the way for a prominent black publishers such as Earl G. Graves and John H. Johnson and Everett Lewis, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when we think about having a black voice in America, which we seem to be devoid of today, because as we look at black concerns that are going on, as we see them in mainstream representing black communities, Charlton, we're not getting the whole story told. And when he told the story with the Chicago Defender, and think about the time, this was right post-slavery, Charlton, and he was so brazen that he would come out, and back then they would call him the uppity N-word by disclosing what white society was doing at that time.
Yeah.
But he also created a black network, Charlton, for blacks to be able to support black businesses, find out what other blacks are doing to help achieve success.
Yeah.
And when you think about the platform that he laid down over 120 years ago, Charlton, and now blacks are still reaping the rewards of his early achievements.
Yeah. And anybody who's ever seen a newspaper section in certain cities, those newspapers have gone away. He was a son of slaves. Abbott grew up with a half-German stepfather whose relatives eventually joined the Third Reich, Big C, during the 1930s. We know Hitler came to power in 1931. Ironically enough, though, Robert was taught to hate racial injustice, like a lot of what we're seeing around the world that people are trying to bring attention to so we can stop it. Despite encountering that, though, Big C, at every turn of his life, in his early foray into the printing business, his time in law school in Chicago, all the way to religious institutions, he didn't try to solve problems on his own. He used the law, he also used the clergy, and he used the print media, Big C, to help change things, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, having the ability to network, Charlton, to utilize others around you.
Yeah.
Also to be able to carry a voice to those people. You think about him as being a beacon of information for the black community in the early 1900s, Charlton. He was able to steer them clear of a lot of problems that potentially would have been in their past through his writing.
Yeah, through writing. Writing opens up the mind. Reading opens up the universe, and writing opens up the mind. I hope that more people understand what he was doing, Big C. As an alum of the great Hampton University, now the HBCU, at that time, it was called Hampton Institute. Abbott was a catalyst for the Great Migration at the turn of the 20th century when 6 million African Americans from the rural Deep South, Big C, they moved to urban cities in the West, out to California, in the Great Northeast, and also the Midwest, with about 100,000 that settled in the city of Chicago and surrounding areas. And with all of the effort that he had put into it, he did all of his success through Jim Crow, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about the success of his print paper, Charlton. That led a lot of intelligent blacks to say, hey, there's opportunity if we move away from this dungeness place that we're in.
Yeah.
And that opened the segue, Charlton, to that migration to the North and the Midwest for many blacks. And without having someone who was salient enough to explain to them that the opportunities persisted beyond Master's plantation, Charlton,
yeah,
who knows how many blacks would have been still stuck in the South at that point.
Yeah, that's why it always takes a few people. It doesn't take all members of Congress. It just takes like President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris. You know, giving speeches is fine. I mean, I'm not knocking anybody giving a speech. But the most powerful thing in the universe is called a pen and a piece of paper that allows you to sign things into law. Martin Luther King, late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he gave the greatest speeches of anyone that I can recollect, Big C. I know I've been around some great African-American pastors, and when they spoke, it's as if the universe was opening up because they spoke with fire and brimstone. But they didn't have the ability to take an ink pen and a piece of paper and change law, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, we have so many Republican lawmakers, Charlton, who oppose equality in America. Just plain and simple. They oppose equality in America. It's just like they're out right now trying to make an Anglo-Saxon sector of the law, Charlton, where they're trying to create an Anglo-Saxon-only party. And so all you black and Hispanic and Asian Republicans, think about this. They don't want you as part of their party. They want a white Americans-only party. And as long as they're trying to do these things, Charlton, and you got elected officials using this rhetoric, how in the hell can you ever have equality in America when they are more determined today than ever? I think even more determined today than it even was in slavery, Charlton, to keep America separate.
You know, I heard an attorney by the name, I won't say his first name, but his last name was Dershowitz. And I was watching different news channels last night when I got in just to kind of see what people were talking about, because I think in the first time in my life, I won't say the first time, but media is more prominent now than ever. So people all over the world can watch what's happening in any country. There's a crackdown in Russia where people are opposed to what Putin is doing, so they're locking those guys up, putting them in prison. They're not giving them civil rights to even complain. They're just putting them in prison, Big C. But I heard this professor that I used to have respect for. His name was Dershowitz. And as he was on television, he was saying that in the Chauvin trial, I know people want to get into sports, and that's why a lot of this has happened. I think it's going to take the sports world to clean up some of it, because a lot of other people are afraid to talk about it. But that attorney by the name of Dershowitz, Big C, he was saying that the only reason the acquittal happened is because the defense attorney did a horrible job, that he should have put Chauvin on the stand, and that the jury chose to convict him because they were intimidated by what people would do if they allowed someone to go free after killing a man in broad daylight. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they even used Maxine Waters saying that she intimidated the jurors, Charlton, by coming to Minneapolis. There was no cry out about any white politician going to Minneapolis or speaking out about Derek Chauvin even prior to the trial, Charlton. But I think we have to judge Americans for being intelligent from time to time.
Yeah.
That you have to believe your lying eyes and what they're telling to you. That's what the defense attorney was trying to say. Don't believe your lying eyes. I'm going to give you every reason why George Floyd died other than Derek Chauvin killing him.
Yeah.
Because what you saw him doing by choking him to death, that wasn't reality. That was an optical illusion in your mind. And that's what white society was trying to say. It was an optical illusion. It's really not what happened. He had no choice but to kill him. But that's not the main thing, Charlton. The main thing is going to be the judge in 2 months, okay? Derek Chauvin can face 75 years in prison, or he can face 12 years in prison. This is up to the judge who will be sentencing him in 2 months.
Yeah.
Not only that, the judge told him that they had grounds for appeal of the case. He was doing everything he could to get Chauvin off at the end of the trial, talking to his attorney and all the jurors.
Yeah.
Not only that, Charlton, but like I said, if he doesn't give him 75 years and he only gives him 12, then they will go to appeal and try to get this overturned. Based on what politicians they said that the president had no right to speak about the trial. Maxine Waters had no right to speak about the trial. They are human beings. They are American citizens. Everybody had a right to form and voice their own opinions, regardless of the political or private sector part of America that they were in.
Yeah. Yeah, for any defense attorney that's saying that that's fair, just do a good job for the American citizen. Let a 200-pound man put his knee on your neck, or maybe your children's neck, for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, and then tell them they're totally justified in doing it. It's all fair and love and war, Big C. Major League Baseball and education. In Atlanta High School, it changes its namesake to Hank Aaron from a former first Ku Klux Klan leader. High school in Atlanta is renaming itself after the late Braves player, the great Hank Aaron, Hammer and Hank. He started the next school year, Big C. In doing so, the school will be moving away from his previous namesake with the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, Forest Hill Academy, named after ex-Confederate leader Nathan Bedford Forrest, Big C, will now be named Hank Aaron New Beginnings Academy. It's on the topic of the name of the chain's Atlantic Public Schools Board Chairman, Jason Evestes, Big C, and said that names do matter. And I think it's good that we've changed some names on professional sports teams, Washington Redskins to Washington's football team. I think the Cleveland Indians are getting rid of that mascot name next year. Some people say it's council culture, others say it's being caring. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, thinking about this, think about the upheaval that has gone across in America because sports franchises have had the name of Native American culture.
Yeah.
There have been no outcry from white people across America, Charlton, because institutions, schools, military bases have had the names of traitors to the American nation. Think about that. When you think about how many monuments, schools, military installations, Charlton, are named after Confederate officers. And here's a high school that was named after a Ku Klux Klan leader in Atlanta. You said, and they're finally removing the name of that, Charlton.
Yeah.
So there's been no outcry against people who tried to overturn overturn this country, Charlton. You think about the rebellion that the South had. They're okay with that. They're okay with those names being on monuments and recognized. And you think about it, all of those came in the 19th century, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're not war heroes. They're not American heroes. They were damn traitors. They tried to destroy the United States of America.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the original insurrection? That's what those people did. And they were rewarded with it, Charlton, for lifetime recognition.
For a lifetime recognition is all fair in love and war. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. When we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on in the sports universe. And according to the late, I mean, there's so many things that have just in my mind that are more important than sports, and that's why I love having the platform to talk about it. In the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps that are growing that I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. I want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and play Big C Sports Podcast, and it comes all over the world. You'll see all the apps pop up from all over the world. You can hear the Big C Sports Podcast. Really appreciate that. I want to touch on some NFL football, Big C. The Steel Curtain is back and strong. I know they had an 11-0 start last year. Hit a couple of speed bumps, but I think they're still in a good position. They've re-signed Big Ben Roethlisberger. We'll see what happens with that. But the Steelers, they gave head coach Mike Tomlin a 3-year contract extension, although there were some Steeler fans who were calling for Mike Tomlin's head due to the way the season ended last year. You know, he's the second most winningest coach, active coach. I think it's he Andy Reid and Belichick are 1, 2, and 3, Big C. And I think, of course, Belichick was the #1 winning coach of the last 2 decades, Big C. But you have Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin right there. So also some fans didn't want to have him there because of whatever their short-minded memory is, Big C. When you think about it, the team wasn't willing to listen to those fans, and they know that because the Steelers awarded their long-term coach with a 3-year extension, and it happened on Tuesday, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, it's great to have Mike Tomlin in, you know, for a long-term deal with the Steelers. This is an organization that was built on stability, Charlton. They've had 3 coaches in the last 5 decades, and you think about Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher. All 3 of these coaches have led the Steelers to Super Bowl victories, Charlton.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin's been there twice. He's 1-1. And where are you going to go out and find his replacement? You're just not, Charlton. He has a .650 winning percentage as a head coach in the NFL and gets no praise as being one of the top coaches of the league because he's African-American. But his success speaks for itself. And the Rooney family understands it's hard to find success in this league.
Hard to find it and hard to keep it. Sometimes it's like people, you know, I mean, everybody's different. People are on dating apps and whatever they got to do. I mean, do what makes you happy. But people swipe left and swipe right all the time in sports. Players get cut. Players get traded. Coaches get fired. When you got something good, sometimes it's best to hold on to it. Big C, it's not always greener on the other side of the swipe, if that makes sense to you. So the new deal means that the 49-year-old Mike Tomlin is now under contract in Pittsburgh through 2024. And the one great thing among many great things about Mike Tomlin, Big C, there's been no type of shenanigans with Tomlin. You've had shenanigans in New England with Belichick, Big C, the Deflate Gate. You know, that had shenanigans. You look at shenanigans in Kansas City, even under Andy Reid. People say, what shenanigans under Andy Reid? Well, look at what happened with his son on the team and what he's done. And now young girl is never going to be the same, Big C. I don't think there's ever been any shenanigans with Mike Tomlin, Big C. Your thoughts?
Mike Tomlin has had a clean slate in the NFL, and that's what has made it so difficult for the media and even fans, Charlton, to be so negative about him. It is because what has he done wrong? You can't point your finger into it. He's had a winning season every year in Pittsburgh, Charlton. Every year.
Yeah.
Not every other year, every year. So you think about the success and stabilization that he has brought to that organization, and you say, okay, there's got to be something else better out there.
Yeah.
No, it's not. you're as good as you're going to get with that black man.
Yeah, and he also has a Super Bowl championship. Big C, a lot of good players I've loved playing for him. He lets guys play, and to me, the record speaks for itself. When you think about Tomlin, as we talked about, the third Steeler head coach since 1969. Go back to 1969. Not a lot of things are the same. A lot of things have changed. He's the third Steeler head coach since the 1969 season, joining Hall of Famers the late Chuck Noll from 69 to 91, Big C, the great Bill Cowher from 92 to 2006. And to put that in perspective, the Cleveland Browns in their same division, Big C, they've had 4 coaches since 2018, Big C. Your thoughts?
4 coaches since 2018.
Yeah.
And the Steelers have had 3 since 1969.
Yep.
Damn, Charlton, I wonder which one of those teams have been to the Super Bowl 7 times during that stretch. You know? But when you look at the success and stabilization of an organization, the Rooney family has accomplished that in the Steel City, Charlton.
Yeah.
They believe and back the men that they've hired over the last 5 generations, Charlton, last 5 decades. And the success that they have. But the belief that they have in an African-American coach that has been the longest tenured African-American coach in NFL history, Charlton, you have to feel praise for Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, and they haven't had any type of shenanigans under Mike Tomlin, Big C. What individual players do on their own, that has nothing to do with the coach. And you think about it, Deflategate, and everybody loves what's going on in New England over the last couple of years, but maybe there's a reason. I mean, it's all fair love of war. I want to bounce the ball to the NBA. What a great game tonight. We have the Phoenix Suns and the Philadelphia 76ers, Big C. But think about NBA. His nightly assault on NBA record book. Curry's playing against Washington tonight, Big C. We joke about Steph Curry and how good he might be. Maybe he's not even a human, Big C. Maybe he's made out of a factory, if that makes sense to you. But think about Steph Curry, the last 5 games. And going into tonight, don't know what's happening in tonight's game with the Washington program, the Washington Wizards, Big C. But 49 points, 10 threes, 47 points, 11 threes, 33 points, had 4 threes in that game, 42 points with 11 threes, and 53 points with 10 threes. No one in NBA history has made more threes, which is 46 in a 5-game stretch, than the great Steph Curry, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, this man has been uncanny and unconscious, Charlton, in what he has done over the past couple of weeks in the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, it's must-see television. Everybody in the league, all of his peers, sit back in praise and in awe of what Steph Curry does on a night-by-night basis, Charlton. And he's playing against some of the best defenders in the world.
Oh, yeah. And Big C, he's playing with a bruised tailbone. I mean, a lot of guys, if you never had one, you know how difficult that is, but he still plays with a bruised tailbone. He doesn't sit out and say, hey, my fingernail hurts or something, like a lot of other players do. It also appears like he's shooting through a hula hoop while world-class athletes are still stuck trying to conquer one of those elliptical illusions like at a carnival, Big C. You shoot the basketball, it doesn't go through. But for a little perspective, and this is what we talk about MVP, and I know you like the Joker, but I'm going to tell you this, and I might be wrong. Nobody is changing their plans to go watch the Joker play. I mean, that's, numbers aside, people change plans to see if Curry's going to play. That's just my opinion. But think about it. Curry's made more three-pointers over the past 11 games, not including tonight, Big C, has 78. Think about that. Chris Paul has made 73 all season. Curry's done that in 11 games, 78. Check out what the guys are doing in April. Steph Curry's updated April stats, 40.7 points per game, 55, 50, 91 shooting splits in 10 games. He's 72 of 143 from 3. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, he's picking them up and knocking them down. You think about an NBA player, Charlton, 50% from the three-point arc. That's Steph Curry. That's unconscionable as you look at the proficiency that he shoots at from the field, Charlton. But I understand what you're saying about he being much-watched television, which is great. Being on the highlight reel is a wonderful thing. But consistency is what they do when they start looking at the MVP. That guy that you can count on night in and night out. I noticed Steph has missed some time playing this year with various injuries. The Joker is there every night, and that's what it's going to come down to, is what you've done for your team on an every night basis, not an every other night basis.
But I think anyone looking at NBA basketball, there's no way you can make a claim that the Joker's the best NBA basketball player, not even the MVP. But sometimes
the MVP is not the best player, and that's where people who are fans get misconstrued about what the award is all about. It is the player that has done the most to make his franchise the best throughout the season.
And that's why I think Curry is the MVP. He has no help around him. Think about this, Big C. They're playing tonight, and I got the game recorded, but Curry just overtook Bradley Beal. They'll duel tonight, Big C, for the NBA scoring lead in a chase for his second scoring title, with hardly any support. The Joker has a lot of support in Denver. They face each other on Wednesday tonight in D.C., District of Columbia. You know, Donald Trump's favorite city, District of Columbia, Big C. Steph Curry, 31.4 points. The great Bradley Beal at 31.1. I'm sure missing something, Big C, but I'm just saying, committed to the belief that he can win the MVP is my opinion. Some people say no, it's not possible. Everybody has their own opinion. But I know for sure he's been the best player in the league this season. And people can debate all they want. What tastes better, red wine or white wine, or in your case, moonshine, Big C. But everybody has their own opinion. But I just find
let me do a parallel.
Yeah.
Who's the best player in the NFL?
I'm not going to say Brady, but he has the most championships. Doesn't make him the best player.
No, who's the best player in the NFL?
There's too many to say which one. You can say Patrick Mahomes. You can say that.
If you're building a franchise, if there's one player that you'll turn a game on Sunday, and 98% of America will do the same, they will turn on Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, Brady has the most championships, but the most dynamic player and the must-see television in the NFL is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But he has not won the MVP the past 2 years either.
Well, he is a Super Bowl MVP. And
No, I'm talking about regular season.
Yeah.
When you talk about turning on a regular season game, the most dynamic and most want-to-be-seen player by any fan in America, Patrick Mahomes wins that contest.
Yeah.
But over the last 2 years, Aaron Rodgers has been the MVP. Lamar Jackson won the MVP, and neither one of them has made the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, that's why everybody has their own opinion, but I still don't think that what Curry's doing right now, how someone can pick the Joker over him. But again, that's my opinion, and everybody has one. I want to jump to another player. You know, a lot of people, that's why I love the game. Big C, you can't look at one football player and say that guy's the absolute best, maybe at his position, but even that's debatable whether it's high school, college, or NFL. Look at the NBA. R.J. Barrett dropped 18 of his 24 points in the third quarter. Imagine watching him do what he did in the third quarter, dropping 18 points, Big C. And then you think about the New York Knicks beat the Charlotte Hornets 109-97, and that was on Tuesday night. That was a 7th straight victory. Now, think about Barrett. His offense and the Knicks defense changed the game after the Hornets scored 66 points in the first half. New York held Charlotte to just 31 points after half. But when you think about the great R.J. Barrett dropping 18 points in one quarter, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if they serve chicken wings in New York, but it seems like the Hornets were choking on a bone last night, Joe. Because, I mean, the Knicks put some standing defense on them to hold them to 31 points in the second half.
Yeah.
That's what Steph Curry scored.
Well, I know they eat a lot of chicken in New York, and I know they have deep-fried apples. I don't encourage the deep-fried apples, but the chicken tastes pretty good no matter where you are with deep-fried. Who cares if it's healthy for you? You don't do it every night. I mean, some guys do, Big C, but most people don't eat deep-fried every night. See your thoughts?
Well, I love some deep-fried, Joe. I'm not sitting around trying to win a beauty contest, just a palate contest.
Yeah, it's all fair level for Big C. Also down south, the great Trae Young dropped 25 points. The great Lou Williams added 22 in his best game since returning to Atlanta. And the surging Hawks, I really like this team. I said they would go into the Eastern Conference playoffs as soon as the season began, and it looks like they're going to, in my opinion. The Hawks pulled away in the final period. It was a 112-96 victory over the Orlando Magic, Big C, on Tuesday night. The Hawks began the day they've been clinging to that fourth spot in the Eastern Conference, which could mean home court advantage in the first round of the playoff, the same way a hawk will cling to a branch, hoping that Big C and his friends can't find them, Big C.
Well, we know that the chicken wings are good down in Atlanta, and Lou Williams is back at home in Atlanta. He's most likely hanging out in Magic City, where he snuck off through during the bubble last year in Orlando, to get an order of chicken wings. playing.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's flying high down there in Hawk Country.
Yeah. And somebody had told me about some of the clubs down in Atlanta and also clubs in Vegas that a lot of people like going to, and everybody has their own fun with, going to clubs, and, it's an economy and women are trying to keep food on the table too. So whatever people do for their entertainment, that's fine and dandy. But I want to just touch on one more thing before I run down tonight's NBA basketball schedule, Big C. When I've been in Northern California, living here in Central California most of my life, when you think about the Bay Area, all of my life, Big C, I think about the names that would draw me closer to the TV or radio. You talked about football, the great Patrick Touchdown Mahomes. You talked about touchdown Aaron Rodgers, touchdown Lamar Jackson, Big C. Everybody has their favorite player. But when I think about some of the names in the Bay Area alone that would draw me, my father, my grandfather, my mom closer to the radio or to the TV, Big C, the great Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays, Big C. I think about Juan Marichal. With my dad's favorite pitcher was Juan Marichal, Big C. The great Reggie Jackson when he came up to bat for the A's. The great Ricky Henderson. Never saw a base he didn't want to steal, Big C. The great Dave Stewart, the strikeout king. And then you think about Rick Barry, who shot his free throws underhanded, Big C. The great Kenny the Snake Stabler, passing deep to Cliff Branch, Big C. Joe Montana, touchdown Joe Montana passing to Jerry Rice. The great Tim Brown that came out of Notre Dame, Big C. Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco, and then none other than the great Barry Bonds, Tiger Woods, many others. When you think about what Curry's doing, why I put him in as the MVP, he will make people talk about how good he was and how good he made people feel mastering his sport. In the next 100 years, they'll be talking about that, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, he's one of the more dominant athletes of his era, Charleston, when you think about his accomplishments. And you name some great athletes that have been out there in California also that have played in that general market.
Yeah.
But when you think about athletes, the impression that they make is a significant one on the level of society that we're living in at that time.
I agree.
Athletics is a great takeaway from society, but it's also a distraction from society. We use that to try to take away some of the ills that we go through in everyday life in America.
Yeah.
And the media wants you to be distracted by athletics. But these athletes have been great nevertheless. But they are human beings also, Charlton.
Yep.
And they feel the same things that everyday citizens feel. They don't always want to go to work when there's strife in American society, but it's their job. But they try to hold up everybody, Charlton, on their backs and get them through tough times.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I appreciate talking to you, Big C. We don't have to agree on everything, and that's good. But I don't like people who just act like they're dumb. Like, the house is burning. Hey, man, did you see the game? Man, the house is on fire. Did you see that guy run the football? Man, the house is on fire. Did you see that home run? And I think yesterday was one of the rare times that I saw all of our sports brethren all over the sports universe that took off their dumb cap. And they left that dumb personality at home. And the TV and radio producers, they left that dumb guy at home too. Because they decided to become real. And they wanted to, just like athletes, they wanted to say, you know what? We are going to talk about what's real, not about fluff, and foo-foo. Tonight's NBA basketball schedule, beautiful Wednesday, April 21st, Big C. Chicago at Cleveland, Oklahoma City at Indiana, Phoenix at Philadelphia. That's a game I want to ask you about. Golden State at Washington, Brooklyn at Toronto, and who knows who's going to show up for Brooklyn, Big C. Atlanta at the New York Knicks. That is a game I want to see, Big C. I should have recorded it, but I didn't. Utah at Houston, Detroit at Dallas, Miami at San Antonio, Memphis at the LA Clippers, Denver at Portland, and Minnesota at Sacramento. Big C, your thoughts tonight. Phoenix at Philadelphia, in my opinion, the game of the night. And some people think maybe an outside chance at an NBA Finals. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, it's about Philadelphia being healthy later on, Charlton. But tonight, this is the game that Philadelphia will dominate. I think that when you think about the emotion that Philadelphia is going to be going into this game with after that loss that they had to take against Golden State, Charlton, they're going to be more determined against Phoenix. You know, this is a game, can Phoenix shoot the ball? You know, because, I mean, Ayton will be eliminated by Embiid on the inside, and can Simmons get over 15 points from the floor? If so, this will be an easy walk for the Sixers.
Yeah, I didn't think that Golden State would have beaten Philadelphia the way that they did, but maybe they were just, I mean, they were watching Steph Curry shoot too, Big C. That's my opinion. It's all fair. That's why someone poked him in the eye, Big C. It's all fair and love and war. I love what the NBA is doing. One more thought. You talked about some good chicken wings in the city of New York. You know, New York has every type of food you could eat, Big C. Will they eat some hawks deep fried, or will they let the hawks fly away tonight, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they most likely will let them roast, Charlton, hang them in the window like a little TJ duck, Charlton, and have it with the blaze on.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Don't bite that apple if you're a hog. Do not feed apples to hogs. It's not supposed to be what they eat, Big C. Major League Baseball universe tonight, Big C. The Corbin Burns struck out 10 in 6 spotless innings, Big C. We've seen a lot of this in baseball lately. He was doing his thing, extending his incredible start to this season. And the Milwaukee Brewers, they blanked the shorthanded San Diego Padres. It was 6-0 on Tuesday night. I know they're playing again today, but after 4 starts this year, Burns has had an unimaginable 40. Think about that, 40 strikeouts and 0 walks, Big C. He's already the only pitcher since 1900 to whiff 30 batters without issuing a free pass. And think about that, through the first 3 starts of a season since 1900, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Charlton, you know, everybody was always talking about the ball being doctored and it's flying further out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
It's not flying any further than home plate when Burns is on the mound, Charlton. It's phenomenal to think of a pitcher in this day and age with these tremendous athletes coming up the bat to have that much command over that rubber mound, Charlton, being able to paint the white and the black, Charlton, to get those consistent strikeouts and not allow a hit or even give up a walk.
Yeah, and you know how they were talking about moving the mound back 1 foot, I guess a foot and a half. Don't do that. If you're going to play Major League Baseball, you got to be able to hit guys that can throw through the eye of a needle, if that makes sense to you. Burns is 2-1 on the season. He's actually a native of Bakersfield, California, in South Central California, Big C, the southern part of the San Joaquin Valley. He lowered his ERA to think about this, 0.37, Big C, your thoughts?
You know, you talk about a minuscule ERA, Charlton, 0.37. I mean, as a baseball player, anytime you got point on something, you're in trouble, especially as a batter, Charlton. But that ERA under a half a run a game, basically a third of a run a game that he's giving up.
Yeah.
You're an opposing batter and you're coming up. I don't know if you're licking your bat, putting pine tar on it, Charlton, or sitting over there praying to Jesus.
Yeah.
Give me some help.
Yeah, and you know it has to intimidate batters. You know, most pitchers, when they warm up, they throw it to a guy with a catcher's mitt. This good old boy, when he's warming up, he's pitching through the eye of a needle. I really saw it. I guess I saw it on TV, Big C. I don't know if it's true or not. You know, attorneys say you can't believe everything you see with your eyes. But that good old boy is doing things, and I really appreciate what he's been doing in the world of baseball. Also, Major League Baseball, Northern California, Big C, the Oakland Athletics are surging after struggling mightily at the start of the season. And I think the Oakland A's are going to get a new baseball stadium close to Jack London Square, where it's right there on the water. It may be a decade away, who knows, but I know I've seen the drawings of it, and it looks beautiful. Even though I think they could just put some more people to work by tear down Mount Davis, and you're not going to have football there anymore. Open up the view of the East Bay Hill so they can see how well they're hitting the ball. The Minnesota Twins are rolling yet, celebrating, finally getting off the deck of the Diamondbacks. Matt Olson hit a grand slam. Mitch Moreland hammered twice to back Sean Menese's strikeout as Jose Lazaro followed his own game in Game 2, Jim, as Oakland swept a doubleheader against the depleted Twins. It was 7-0 and 1-0 on Tuesday to run their win streak to an improbable 10 games, even though the San Francisco Giants are the Bay Area media darling. That A's team is scoring all A's, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, wasn't that their win total last year, 10 games?
It seemed like it.
But you think about it, throwing back-to-back shutouts in that doubleheader. You got to give some praise to their pitching staff, Charlton, because they were dominant. You just talked about the young man having a 0.37 ERA, and now you look at the A's with back-to-back shutouts, Charlton. Something is working there in that green land out there in Oakland.
Yeah, it's a lot of green floating around Oakland, Big C, and it's the kind of green, it's green. I'll just leave it at that, if that makes sense to you. It's all fair, love and war, Big C. Major League Baseball. Julio Urias enjoyed a trip to Seattle and performance against the Mariners. Think about this. Way more than the last time he was on the same mound. He threw 7 dominant innings of a one-hit ball, striking out a career-high 11 and leading the Los Angeles Dodgers to a 1-0 win on Tuesday. When you think about the Dodgers, most people think Clayton Kershaw. They think about how they have such a dominant bullpen, Big C. There's so many players on that Dodger team. You can score one run, and because they're pitching so strong, you can get a win, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you think about Urias, the unsung hero of that pitching staff, Charlton, to come out there and throw that shutout in an outing. But the Dodgers have been playing this way as a team all year. You think about Justin Turner. He's having best first month of the season in his entire career as a Dodger, Charlton. So they don't have any hangover from last year's World Series. They picked up where they lucked up last year down in Texas.
From the South, it's okay to say the best baseball in the Major League Baseball universe is played, west of the Mississippi River, Big C. They didn't luck up. They struck people out.
Well, when you got a manager, Charlton, that's pulling a pitcher that you can't hit, you can't tell me a little luck ain't on your side.
You call it luck, I call it prop betting. It's all very 11 words, Big C. I mean, think about it. He's outstanding 3-0. He's painting edges with a fastball in the mid-90s, mixing in a curveball that kept Seattle's hitters guessing. And Seattle's lone hit was Mitch Haniger's slow infield single with 2 outs in the third inning. There's something about Dodger Blue, they call it, Big C, and they have that history. They put $100 million in the renovation of the Dodger Stadium, Chavez Ravine, and they have a team, I guess they're spending more money than anybody on their franchise outside of maybe the New York Yankees over the years, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess when you got a lot of paper bags, when you're cutting down the forest out here in California, you can make a lot of paper. So you put it in the paper bags, you print the money on paper, you can pay it.
Well, I guess some of the money comes from Bitcoin. It's all fair. I love it where I love Dodger Blue, even though I'm in Northern California. I admire all good teams that play baseball. Tonight's schedule, Wednesday, April 21st, 2021. The San Francisco Giants doing their thing in Philadelphia, Big C, and you have the Baltimore Orioles down in Miami playing against the Marlins. Pittsburgh has a doubleheader against Detroit. The Houston, they have a game at the Colorado Rockies. When you look at Houston and they go up into Colorado, Big C, they're playing in mile-high altitude, whereas always everybody's more relaxed. And I know sometimes those video cameras don't see as well when it's foggy and smoggy in the air, Big C.
Well, you got to bring in some big fans to Mile High Stadium, Charlton, up there in Denver, Coors Field. I mean, you got the Rocky Mountain High, you got the beer that's made from, snow water and everything, Charlton. Everything's relaxing up there.
Everything's relaxing in Mile High City, if that makes sense to you, Big C. You also look at the Arizona Diamondbacks at the Cincinnati Reds. Arizona is doing their thing, Big C. You have Atlanta and the Big Apple. It's amazing. I guess the Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Hawks, they took the same airplane to go to New York tonight, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you save on some jet fuel. We're talking about green lighting, Charlton.
Yeah. I mean, it's all fair 11 war. Even millionaires got to start. Hey, man, you got room on your plane for my team? It's all fair 11 war, man. And you also have Toronto Blue Jays at Boston, Big C, and the Diamondbacks at the Cincinnati Reds. The New York Mets at the Chicago Cubs. I love seeing the beautiful ballpark in Chicago, Big C. Even when it doesn't have fans, it's a great thing to look at. Tampa Bay at Kansas City, and then you also have a game with the Sox, the Chicago White Sox, and their game against Cleveland has been postponed. But Major League Baseball, there's a lot of good things to see in the world of Major League Baseball, but a guy with an ERA of .37, I don't think I've ever seen that in my lifetime, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it gives me reminders of the late, great Bob Gibson, Charlton, who was the most dominant pitcher that I have ever seen in my lifetime. To go through a regular season and to have an ERA under 1, Charlton, and that is the reason why they lowered the pitching mound in Major League Baseball, because of an African-American pitcher.
Yeah, he was doing his thing, and people didn't like the way he was doing his thing. So also, before we close today, we talk about basketball players again. I think Steph Curry, he's my MVP. Especially, I love his last name, Big C, but just what he's been doing. Again, I haven't seen tonight's game. But also, when you think about dominant athletes, there's talk that Anthony Davis is going to be back on the floor for the Lakers this week, Big C. I mean, I don't know your feeling on this. If an athlete is hurt, they're hurt. Maybe there are some shenanigans with some guys. But I believe that there's some sentiment from media that people are skipping games because they just don't want to play, as opposed to saying something is wrong with my extremity. And we've seen Durant come back too soon, in my opinion, last time the Warriors were in the finals against Toronto, and he tore his Achilles. Before they were saying it was a lower extremity injury, a hamstring or whatever, and then when he tore his Achilles, Big C, then people said, oh my God, he came back too soon. But there were also people saying, well, he needs to toughen up and come back earlier. So you really can't win. So when guys say they're hurt, do you believe them, or do you say, don't worry about the media, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think there's one player in professional sport that gives a damn about what the media says anyway, Charlton. I mean, when guys in the media have a headache, they don't show up at the game. You know, they stay at home because they got a nose run.
Yeah.
They don't come to the game, Charlton. But athletes are injured all the time. There's nobody healthy in professional sports after the first week of any season. If you look at Major League Baseball right now, look how many players have gone on the IL already a month into the season, Charlton.
Yeah.
You see the NBA, this isn't a reoccurring thing every week amongst the players running up and down the hardwood. Players get injured.
Yeah.
And when you think about somebody like Anthony Davis, that has been his entire career on an injured list, Charlton, at one time or another in every season. He has not played a complete season his entire NBA career.
Yeah.
So this is par for the course for him. But injuries do occur with these gentlemen, Charlton. When you think about the muscle stress that they go on, the bone stress that they deal with night in and night out, running up and down that hardwood floor.
Yep.
I know that shoes have been advanced over the years to take away some of the stress off the legs, the muscles, and the joints, Charlton. But still, you're looking at these oddly long men running up and down the court, banging on each other physically. Injuries will occur.
Yeah, they do occur. I think even when I walk, I have the arch because I have plantar fasciitis, which means, you know, your foot needs a little bit of help so you don't feel pain. And sometimes if I don't wear them, I feel a lot more pain. So they do work. And some people might say, oh, you're just faking. No, you see commercials all the time saying get the arch put in your shoe. That way, if you're going to go out and walk and jog, you don't have to deal with as much pain. So I just wish everybody the best. If Anthony Davis is not healthy enough to come back, don't feel pressure. You got your whole life ahead of you. If you need to take more time, just talk to Kevin Durant. He's always been banged up over the last couple of outings, but it doesn't matter what people think. You know how you feel, and that should be all that matters. I hope that everybody can understand that we need some immunity with law enforcement. We got to have some more executive action and less political speeches. That's just my opinion. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. And he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose, Big C? What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking for some great outings in the sports universe, but I want to send a thank you and a gratitude to all those honorable men and women in law enforcement. All of you who do a great job, who go out and treat each other and all American citizens with respect and not prejudgment as far as you doing your job.
Yes.
And I also want to send a thank you to our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. You always extend gratitude to everybody that you help out there on a daily basis.
Very well said. We thank everybody doing the very best they can to treat everybody with dignity, respect, and justice for all. You can have justice for all every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As my mama always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.